I'm joined now by Trevor Holder, the candidate in Portland-Simonds, a person well known in politics. But Trevor, thank you for being here. Would you like to tell us something about you and tell us why you're running?
Well, and I get asked that question after 21 years, why would I still want this job? And, it's a fair question. At the end of the day, what drove me to public life 2 decades ago was I was tired of seeing people from my generation have to leave to other parts of Canada to find employment. And today, it's about creating those same opportunities for my children and for my grandchildren. I love St. John. I've never envisioned living anywhere else. And, I thought long and hard back in 2018 as to whether or not I would reoffer at that point, because after all those years, was it time to move on? And I got to tell you, I love the straight talk of Blaine Higgs. I love the whole notion of just getting things done. And I really feel strongly that we have been able to get some things done over the last 18 months to 2 years, working in a minority government situation. And there's a lot of time that takes to keep that minority government together. But at the same time, we have been able to get things done. I'm really proud of the work that we did with population growth. I'm really proud of the fact that we've changed the way that we do business with respect to workforce development. And the two go hand in hand. We have 120,000 New Brunswickers leaving the workforce over the next 10 years due to retirement. That's a population the size of Greater St. John. So we have to get serious about keeping our young people here and attracting more new Canadians than ever before. And we can't fail on that. If we do, the last person in New Brunswick can shut out the light. And I feel very strongly about that. And there's some momentum. For the first time in a long time, our population is growing in this province. And I believe in large part, it's due to the population growth strategy that we've put in place and the way that we've changed the way we do business with respect to workforce development.
Now, what's a campaign day like for you in this unprecedented COVID environment?
Well, Randy, it's interesting that you asked that, because in some ways it's very different, but in some ways it's not that different. I look at the fact that it's very common for me to be walking around in neighborhoods like Crescent Valley or Milledgeville or the Old North End anyway, so that when people see me driving around in a campaign vehicle and I wave to them and I jump out and I talk to them on the street corner, that happens anyway. So it's very natural. So what I've spent most of my time doing over the last number of weeks is just simply phoning people in the area, reaching out to people, driving around until I see somebody. My daughter, Catherine, who's doesn't go back to school till next week, she's been kind of riding shotgun in the van with me, and we've been putting signs up as we go along, and we've been engaging with people in the riding as we go along. So it's different, but it's really not that different, because that's what I do anyway.
I'd like to talk a bit about voter turnout. The provincial turnout rate has declined over the years from over 82% in 1967 to a little over 66% 2 years ago. It's especially low in St. John and especially low in Portland, the second lowest voter turnout rate of the 49 constituencies. Do you have an explanation for this, and how can that turnout rate be increased?
Randy, one of the things that frustrates me about that question is we only ever ask ourselves that question at election time. Like, why are we not getting a turnout? And I think that if you look at where you have a low turnout, there are people that feel disenfranchised, they feel disengaged. That's not just at election time. So, and if you look at areas where there's a lack of engagement, there's also a lack of prosperity. And the two go hand in hand. And that's why I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing with my department with respect to the whole new Working New Brunswick brand. And we've taken all of those criteria-based programs and collapsed them into one flexible pot of money so that we can tailor a strategy around the needs of that community, because what works in St. John might not be what works in Campbellton. And what works in St. John today might not be what works in St. John 2 years from now. In fact, I think what COVID has taught us is that what worked in January might not be what works in March. So we had a lot of programming in our department that was very criteria based, and we were trying to fit employers and employees and communities into that criteria, as opposed to being able to tailor some of the programming around that. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I think we have a real opportunity to be very community focused in how we create engagement, how we create prosperity, and really have the changes in the communities that we're talking about. You know, you use the date 1967. Randy, you and I have grown up in the North End. We know it well. And back in the late 60s, in so-called urban renewal, everything from St. Luke's Church to Union Street was bulldozed over. In our parents' generation, there were thousands of people that lived in that area. And there's nobody that lives there today. Not a single person in that whole. What did they do? They replaced it with an overbuilt 6-lane highway that wasn't needed then, and it's not needed now. And I really think that we need to have some serious conversations around economic development and driving urban development in our city center, and attract more people into the community through population growth and through creating real vibrant communities, as we've talked about many times before. Mm-hmm. And when we see that kind of excitement happen, that's when I think we're going to see more engagement. We're going to see more prosperity, more opportunity, and with that comes the kind of engagement and voter turnout that we need. But we always wait till election time to wonder why people in a community aren't engaged.
Okay. We canvassed a number of community organizations in the constituency to ask them questions that they would like to have an answer to. And here are some questions to the themes that emerged. The first one is poverty. The poverty rates have been persistently high in the constituency. Minimum wages are low and only tied to inflation. Social assistance rates are low. Millions of dollars has been spent by the province in St. John since the election of 2015. What do we have to do to get the rate down?
I think that a lot of the work that I'm talking about with respect to our shift in my department in Petal is going to play a big role in that. And between my department and Minister Shepherd's Department of Social Development, there has been a lot of great work getting clients of social development to become clients of post-secondary education training and labor, and really working to find ways to put those wraparound services around people to make sure that they're, and look, I'll use the example of the St. John Learning Exchange. Going forward, I would really love to look at a model where we looked, and not just the St. John Learning Exchange, we could do this with a lot of other organizations around New Brunswick, where we know we get results. And I know that with respect to some of the money that was spent through the $10 million that came to St. John, there was some work done with the Learning Exchange to kind of ramp up and scale up their efforts. And there's been a lot of success with that. So they've got a proven track record. What do we do with an organization like that? We make them go through this cumbersome process every year, every couple of years to justify their existence. And they spend so much time, wasted time, on trying to fill out the next application for the next round of funding, when, quite frankly, they could be using that time helping people. And I think that what we need to look at is signing 5 or 10-year agreements with organizations like this that have a proven track record, so that they can focus on what they do best and create those wraparound services and to pay their clients for what they're doing. And we've seen some great social enterprises like Stone Soup come out of that whole process as well. And those are results. And I think we have to start finding ways to find long-term sustainable funding. And I believe that with the whole revamp of our department and creating that flexibility with the funding that we've done, those are the type of things that we can look at. That's certainly what we did with respect to the the funding that we just recently announced for all the economic development agencies, I think the same thing can be done for the nonprofits moving forward too. That's certainly my vision, and that's certainly my dream as we move forward. And on that note, a lot of that work that the economic development agencies will be doing, first of all, I have to point out, it's the first time in my lifetime that I can ever remember all the municipalities in the Greater St. John area agreeing on anything. And I thought it was very important that we come up with multi-year funding where they set targets and benchmarks, and if they hit those benchmarks, and the funding keeps going. If they don't, then you pull it back. And I think we can do the same thing in the nonprofit sector as well. And you know, the component with the economic development agencies around population growth is going to be key to growing our population and creating that excitement and vibrancy and prosperity that I was talking about a few minutes ago.
COVID was unanticipated, and its impact, I think, was unforeseen, but it certainly magnified a number of issues faced by vulnerable populations. Food insecurity, isolation, mental health issues. Precariously employed constituents raised concerns about the lack of paid sick leave. That was an issue for several. I think the opening of schools worries some parents. What's your plan to ensure that these issues highlighted by COVID are addressed?
First of all, I have to say I'm very proud of New Brunswickers. I'm very proud of the work that our government did with the all-party committee to have one of the lowest infection rates anywhere in the world, quite frankly, and or at least amongst the lowest in the world. That didn't happen by accident. And so I think New Brunswickers need to be commended for that, for understanding what needed to be done. And I'm proud of the work of our government. I'm proud of the work of our premier on that. And it wasn't easy. Like, I can tell you that being part of that COVID cabinet committee, which I was, there were some moments where the information that was coming at us and very quickly, I was as afraid of the chaos that could happen as much as I was the virus itself. And I know I wasn't alone in that. But I think that we all, as New Brunswickers, rose to that challenge and did very well coming out of it. And I think we're very strategically positioned in terms of economic development coming out of this and growth. The fact that we've opened up as quickly as we have ahead of the rest of the continent has really positioned us well, as the Bank of Montreal has recently stated that we're going to be probably #2 in their projections next year in terms of growth anywhere in the country. And that's something that I think we can be proud of, and we can't lose that momentum. But some of the other things that you talk about there, what I think COVID has taught us is that there's a lot of silos within government that are now being torn down. And on food security, conversations around labor market demands and the agricultural industry and value-added products that we can develop. And we're really seriously asking the question, can we feed ourselves as a province if we had to? And you know, there's some food sources where we probably could say we could, and there's others where not so much. And so having said that, you know, we're having a really serious conversation now about year-round farming with greenhouse concepts, like huge industrial type greenhouses. And what does that do? Instead of attracting temporary foreign workers for a few months, we're attracting more new Canadians than ever before to find year-round work where they come and become citizens and live here in this country and grow our population. Those are some of those conversations were sort of happening before COVID, but they're really happening now. And you know, you mentioned job protection. I know that was one of the things that came up. We did move very quickly in terms of making sure that people's jobs were protected if they had to leave due to COVID-related reasons. Anyone, however, that is struggling, I encourage them to reach out, like to one of our working New Brunswick offices, sit down with a counselor, start developing a career path, and I deal with constituents every day, and we're having some great success in that. If I look at some of the major job losses that we've had around the province, one of the the best examples of it was how quickly we were able to act in St. Stephen just a year ago with respect to Flake Board. The overwhelming majority of those employees have either found work elsewhere due to the work of other companies that partnered with our department and the labor leadership at the previous company, and some others have been able to retire early, and they were close to being pensioned off. But that was a very concerted, coordinated effort on behalf of our department, and we've done that elsewhere. We're currently doing that actually right in my riding with the employees affected by Saputo. And there's job fairs going on as we speak, and we're gaining some traction there. And I feel that we'll have a similar kind of success. But anyway, a lot of that, if anybody is struggling finding work, they should reach out to one of our Working New Brunswick offices, like right away.
Next question deals with health. New Brunswick has the second highest rate of disability in the country. Constituents raise concerns about mental health and addictions, wait times, and access to a family doctor. What would you do to improve our healthcare system generally and in the constituency?
Well, I think there has been a lot of great work happen over the last number of years with some of the health clinics in the riding. I think we need to build on that. Obviously, mental health is a huge factor in holding people back. And, you know, I've often said that whether people have mental health issues because they're in poverty, or they're in poverty because they have mental health issues, the two go hand in hand. And it leads to a lot of the addiction issues that we face in our society. And nobody just wakes up someday and decides that this is the day that you're going to try crystal meth. There's a whole lot of other social issues that lead to that, and those are the issues that we have to get to the root of. I'm very proud of the work that Dorothy Shepherd has done on the mental health file, and some of the funding that she has been putting in place, and the pilot that she created here in St. John over the last number of months that hopefully can extend around the province as well. So obviously, as I said a minute ago, mental health is all of our business. You know, I've often said that we need to talk more about mental fitness than we talk, because it's when you talk in terms of mental fitness, you realize that we all have an obligation to stay mentally fit just like we do physically fit. And I think that goes a long way to eliminating the stigma when we realize that it could happen to any of us. And it does happen to all of us at one time or another.
In July, there were 89 people in St. John actively experiencing homelessness. Men, women, young and old. And concerns have been raised about the way that systems and discharge planning actually exacerbates the problem, particularly at hospitals and jails, not having adequate case plans and people being discharged into homelessness. What does the province need to do to end homelessness?
There's a lot of great work happening in St. John, and I don't have to tell you that. And in fact, Randy, the work that you do here at the Human Development Council is a big part of that. And I know that in my conversations with Minister Shepherd is that I believe there's a by name list that you've created. And I know there's a position, a project manager or whatever that's tied to that potentially we're looking for more funding to extend that. I would certainly advocate for that. And I know Minister Shepherd feels that way as well. So I want to say that in New Brunswick, I think St. John can be more or less the model for some of our other major centers. And the work that goes on at Outflow and Catapult. And I got to tell you that a lot of the revamping of the Working New Brunswick services will benefit an organization like Catapult. Like the day that, I don't know whether you were at the announcement the day that we unveiled the changes, but Jeremy from Catapult got up to speak, and he talked about the youth assistance program. And very criteria-based, he benefited from it, and I think he was about 19 at the time, or sorry, 29 at the time. And if he'd been 30, he wouldn't have qualified, but all the same issues would have been there. That's why that flexibility is so important, so that we can tailor things around the needs of the individual, of the community, so that no two situations are the same. And so I really think that we need to continue to work with organizations like Outflow and Catapult and have those life-changing moments where people get into a social enterprise, they learn a trade, and they build themselves from there. We need to enhance that. We need more of that. And I also believe that these are all examples where some of that long-term sustainable funding, where we can benefit going forward.
Final question that's a Portland-Simonds type question. The North End has the worst housing conditions in the city. There are many vacant lots and boarded up buildings, and there are fire hazards. Residents have spoken about the need of mixed income housing development. And at the same time, rents are increasing in the city. A report we released yesterday talked about a 12% increase in rents for 3-bedroom apartments in the last 2 years. What would you do to support the development of affordable housing?
Well, we need to continue to work as we have in the past to work with the federal government to have more Canada and New Brunswick housing agreements. I am proud of a lot of the projects that we've done, and some of them very much mixed income at the time I've been a member of the legislature, like the project across from the Y. Then there's other projects on Victoria Street, for instance, that Housing Alternatives has established over the last number of years. There is a lot of great work happening with the land bank in the Old North End, and I believe we need to encourage that. There's a great project underway on Victoria Street right now. And you have heard me speak, I know, Randy, numerous times about the need for a properly facilitated community plan for the Old North End. And that, I was pleased to announce funding for that just about a month and a half ago. And that work is being done by One Change and a facilitator that they've brought in. The board directors and the current leadership at One Change, I believe, are the right fit to drive that. And I think what we need to talk about is safe and affordable housing. We need to talk about mixed housing. We need to have enough housing to attract those new Canadians that I'm talking about. So population growth is going to be a big component of this plan. And I think it's very important that we have 6-month goals in that plan, 2-year goals, and 5-year goals with a renewal in 5 years. And that way you have some early wins to build some momentum in 6 months. And then from there, you have those 2 and those 5-year goals. We had a neighborhood plan for the North End back around 2004, 2005 that led to the One Change building, led to community policing, led to the refurbishment of Victoria Square, led to the playground on Victoria Street. It led to all of that stuff, but you always need a renewal. And I've been advocating for that for some time. I'm really pleased that One Change is taking that direction now, and I'm pleased that our department, through funding to help them with that, with a huge attention focused on population growth, so that we can create a real exciting, dynamic, vibrant community down there where there is safe and affordable housing, where it is mixed. But we also look at some of those other things that create the stickiness that keep people in a community, whether it's cafes and shops and art galleries and all of those other things that will drive that kind of urban living that we need as well.
Thanks. Any final comments or any issues you'd like to raise before we we shut this down?
No, Randy, I want to once again thank you for the opportunity. You always have a forum similar to this. It's a little different because of COVID, but I want to thank the Human Development Council for the great work that you do in the community. And look, I really believe strongly that we've done some great work as a government over the last 18 months to 2 years. And that's with a COVID crisis in the middle of it. We've got our fiscal house in order. We've been able to balance the books prior to COVID. COVID's obviously presented some challenges with that, but we certainly, I think, have been much more strategic on how we spend money. And the type of things that I'm talking about here now with the revamp of Working New Brunswick is a way that we can do that, and we can't lose that momentum. We've got to continue to think outside the box with respect to making sure that we line up our training with our labor market demands that are coming towards us with 120,000 New Brunswickers leaving the workforce. That I don't think is a problem. I think it presents an opportunity. It presents an opportunity for our young people to have opportunities. It presents an opportunity for people that are struggling in the Old North End, but with the right services wrapped around them, that we can get them into some of those opportunities. And it gives us an opportunity to attract more new Canadians than ever before to help come and build this city to be even better than it already is, and build this province to be even better than it already is. And I don't think we can lose that momentum, and we're up for the job.
Trevor Holder, thank you very much.
Thank you.